That's you now. I cannot think why I can't think of his name. He came down with Paul Lambert and they spent a whole day with me on Sunday. And we just talked and talked and talked. I'm trying to think what his name was. He writes books all the time. You know him. Because
Let me
I got
see.
quite a bit done on it.
Today is May 10th, 1983, and this is Joe Todd, an interview with Mrs.
Katie Allen.
Katie Allen.
If you can, put Katie Grant Allen. That
Katie
identifies
Grant
better
Allen.
because the Grants had Fort Arbuckle from the time it was disbanded, abandoned is a better word, and moved to Fort Sill.
What about the cemetery?
The cemetery was, I wish we were out to the farm. I'll have to show you some of these days. That house where I lived across the road over there. You saw that house.
Yeah, right. The
across
stone,
road.
the stone house.
All right. Then between the house and the road, there is a barn. Do you remember seeing that old barn right east of that house over there?
Okay, is that the house that Mrs. Grant is in?
No, it's the one across the road from her.
Okay,
It's not brick, it's made of wood.
okay.
And now that is the original structure, which has just been, we have just redone it, because my husband and I didn't have any money when we got married. His family had been wealthy. Well, we didn't have any money as such. It was depression. It was Dust Bowl. It was everything. If you remember, there was also a terrible drought, which caused the Dust Bowl. And we went through the Dust Bowl, and see what other catastrophe, World War II came along. Oh, we didn't have any money. Nobody had any money. But we proceeded to do that house over. And like I said, if you went over to Fort Sill today and look at the wooden barracks, they would be an exact duplicate of the place where I first started my housekeeping.
That's the little stone house.
It's not stone, it's wood.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute, I know what you're talking about. It has a chimney, with great big rocks around it, and it's been rocked on the outside. Yeah,
Okay,
you're
that's
exactly
it.
right. So, like I said, we didn't have any money. We had to live there. But we were lucky that the first 2 or 3 years, like I said, it was drought and depression. Nobody had jobs or money. They think it's bad now, nothing like that. But anyway, there was an older man and his 2 sons moved in a little house that we owned, just a log cabin. Right down below our house was a log cabin, and we said, left it alone. Again, my brother-in-law tore it up. And he didn't own it, but he got my husband to just tear down this old log house. Well, of course, that was a terrible mistake. It was really early Oklahoma log house, but they tore it down. But anyway, like I said, times were hard. Nobody had any money. This old man moved in from Oklahoma City with his 2 sons. He just didn't have any work. They were carpenters.
What was his name?
Oh gosh, I don't know. It's too long ago. I can't think of his name. Button, Mr. Button, and his 2 sons moved in this old house, which we let them just have it. And then they found out that we wanted to do some work on our house. So we got them, and they were just master craftsmen. We ended up with beautiful floors. We got lovely wallpaper and just redid our house. And it was very pretty then. It is now. But I guess that house has been done over 4 or 5 times. I don't know how many times I did it while I was out there getting my house done over. But anyway, it was a house that had really been a barracks. And it was a house that there'd been a lot of living in before we came along. Different people had lived in that house one time the fort was there. After the fort was abandoned, Mr. Grant owned the land. but he would let different people live. In the fact, if you had help on your farm, you had to have a house for them to live in. So that house was there until my husband and I married, and we lived in this great big house I showed you for a while. But then he said, well, I've got a good house over there. Let's just do it over and we'll live in it, because his brother lived in the other half. And that brother had everything his own way. He was an aggressive man, if I've ever seen it. Very covetous. So we decided we would move into our own house, which we did. And we had a lot of fun fixing it up, and it was in no way modern. No way was it modern. The Army or someone came along at that time and built the outside water closets, the first ones they'd had, that for every one of his country homes that had no water in the house, they did that. Well, my husband and I were really eager to get electricity. That was the next thing. We dreadfully wanted electricity, so we could have a bathroom and indoor plumbing and all that. But that was kind of slow in coming, but we did get electricity. Finally, OG&E put a line out, and we had electricity. Of course, then we got electricity, and we had a bathroom put in. Had our house modernized in every way. We had a sink and water in the kitchen and all of that. But we also had a very good well. That old well out there, did you notice that old well?
Is that where the windmill is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, at first, we had to draw the water out that well and use it for the house. Water was all right. But if you can imagine, I had vegetables all out the side of that, from the well on down there. There's a patch of grass there now, just grass. But I had a garden there then, a big garden there. And like I said, this is depression. You didn't have any money. And I canned. Well, I'd go out there and wash my vegetables at the well, so you wouldn't have to carry it all to the house. Get my vegetables washed at the well, and I would take them in and can them and fix something to eat, all that. But anyway, it was a job to pull that bucket up every time you want to wash off, and I'd have a lot of vegetables, and they'd be pretty dirty. You really have to wash them. So anyway, I did it, and would can all summer long. I would can food, and this was real good because we had all during that depression. We had plenty to eat. We had a house, a roof over our head, a good house, comfortable. We had what we needed. We did not suffer. We still
What
had
year
any
was
money.
this?
Pardon?
What year was this?
Oh my. what in the world was it? It was about the time World War II came along, wasn't that 1941?
That's right.
World War came along in 41. And it probably was before 1941, but not much. Because I think T.S. and I moved into that house. My youngest daughter is 30 years old now, and she was born right after I got in that house. So if I could think of the year she was born, I can't without looking it up. I don't remember what
Well,
year
if she's
she was.
30, she'd been 43.
She's 40-something, 43.
No, 53.
53. 50 is right, because we were talking, they were over here Sunday, and somebody said something about being 50, and you remember your baby is 50-something? And I said, no, I didn't remember that. I said, you never will be 50 to me. You're my baby. But she's got she's got a son and 3 daughters now. And they all love that farm. And you love that place where I live down there, and they love that house. There's something about that house.
Now, that house was the barracks?
Yes, it was a barracks.
Okay.
But I will tell you something about old houses. if you don't know it now, you will discover it one of these days. An amazing discovery, I think. I mean, it's something you figure out easily. But all old houses that have been lived in a long time, where there's been love and living and laughter and even sorrow, something of the character of the people that were there remains in the house. Now, this is something there's no way to define, there's no way to describe it, except that you feel it. And I have had, during World War II, we used to bring, every now and then, we'd bring a couple soldiers home to eat with us from church, you know, they'd come, want to come out and spend the day, and they'd be just delighted and everything. And no more would they get in the house, they'd say, oh, this is home, and the way they would sit down, you know, they said, oh, I just feel at home here, maybe kick off their shoes, you know, go ahead, take off your shoes, you want to. And they would just have a great day. And I think that it was you sense it, you don't, it's not really rational, but you feel it. And I think this is true. I've seen a lot of old houses, known a lot of old houses. But I think it was true especially of that house. And I forgot to tell you that Fort Arbuckle really had a ghost. Did you ever hear that?
No.
Really had one. Now, I don't believe in ghosts. I really don't. But I believe in what I heard. Now this, whatever it was, there's nothing frightening about it. It was there when I came there, and my husband's family told me about it. He said, oh, it's friendly, nothing's ever happened. It's just, you hear it is all. Oh, I've heard it lots of times. And so I kept waiting, and I did hear it. And what all it did was come down the steps, and it sounded to me not like a footstep. It sounded like a cane. But it was measured. Tap, 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 all the way down that long stairway.
This is in the big White House?
In the old house, that big old house. And the family were just all used to it. No, it's just a friendly ghost, you know. And I'm sure it was not a ghost. I don't know what it was, so I never did know what it was. But I would hear it in the daytime. Lots of times I'd hear it at night. And it would do that a while, and then it'd stop, and then maybe start again. It would sound like it came down the steps and went back up. And I said, well, if it's a pecan, it can't come back up. So don't know whether it's a pecan. So I said, oh, that's just a walnut rolling down. I said, well, walnut's not going to get down and go back up and come back down again. But anyway, it did not trouble me in the least. I've been sitting right out in the hall many times when it would start coming down. Daytime, it would come. I don't know what it was. It was a noise. It was something that tapped on the steps. I don't know. And I certainly would hesitate to call it a ghost. But that's as near as I could come to it. And another thing, I think all old houses should have a ghost.
Yeah.
It just ain't right if they don't. And that one, just think how long that had been there, since 1840.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not this particular house. I'm sure all of it wasn't. Somewhere I have a picture of Mr. Grant standing out in front of the old log cabin structure, which was the office of the commandant, and he was there. But, so it was, the house was built by his grandfather. Not the whole house. They started just by the original floor, which was the officers' quarters. And then they built this upstairs, and that thing had 14 rooms, big ones, big rooms. You can imagine how I had, well, I did have help. I had a black girl come as often as I could get her, help me with the cleaning and keeping it. But I was quite happy there, and I would not take anything in the world for the experiences I had there, because I lived in Norman. I grew up in Norman. Didn't know how to bake a biscuit. I did not know how to cook hardly. I could fry eggs and steak, and that'd be about it.
Now, the two chimneys in the big house, was that two separate buildings?
The two chimneys?
Yeah.
No. That big chimney on that side. My husband and I, like I said, we didn't have any money. When I first married, his brother married very shortly after we did. And they decided, this family had always lived together. I've never seen such a family, nor such brothers. They got along, you know. They didn't fuss or anything. And like one brother was very aggressive. My husband was not. He was always willing to let his brothers have what they wanted. My husband was a wonderful man. And he had the best. We never would all got along out there together. But anyway, when we first got married, we took the east wing of the house on that side of the hall, and they took the other one back where they had a big iron stove back here. She had an iron stove. I had an oil stove, was all I had to cook on, but I managed. And we had, those were the biggest rooms I ever saw in my life. They were about 14 by, I think the ceilings were 15 feet. Huge. And cold. We had fireplaces to heat them. Wasn't much heat. I froze to death. But anyway, we all managed to live there and get along there for, I guess, a couple of years. Then my husband said, we've got that house over there. Why don't we just fix it up and go live there? And I said, that tickled me to, I'd like to have my own home. So that's when we decided to do our house over and get it ready. And we got this carpenter, this man, was really a very fine craftsman. He made us the prettiest floors you ever saw, stained. Oh, they're beautiful. Of course, I covered them up with carpets when the children came along and the house was cold, and he said, let's carpet this place, so we did. And got us a floor furnace and some of the comforts of life. As long as we lived in that big, big old house, we had to warm with those fireplaces. Well, in order to get warm by a fireplace, you got to sit right down almost over it. Well, I was always cooking. I was back in the kitchen. It's a wonder I hadn't frozen to death, and I didn't quite, but I thought I was going to several times. But then I was happy as I could be, and we moved over to our house, or the other house. That was mine. I could do what I wanted to with it. And we gardened. Oh, we had sheep, I forgot to tell you. My children have the pictures. I wish I had to. I'm going to get my copy of those. Had great big pictures of our sheep. I love those sheep. They're so beautiful. And I miss them out front. I miss the sheep or anything else because they're just delightful to have around.
How many buildings were left of Fort Arbuckle when you first went there?
When I first went there, of course, there was this old big house and that wash house that you've seen out there out behind. You know, there's those two old buildings. One was a wash house and one was, what was that out there? Smokehouse, the wash house. And then over where Jess and I moved, we had a smokehouse over there. And he finally tore it down, took it out of the yard. We didn't need it anymore. After we moved over there, we take all our meat over to Locker and Davis, you know, put them in the locker where we could go get it when we wanted it. But anyway, we had a happy life. And I spent most of my time in the summer taking tourists through there. All summer I would just be as busy as it be. People would come and knock on the door and they want to know all about the fort. And I had some real interesting people come. One day there was an old lady, very handsome, striking woman, came to the door. She told me her name. She was from California. And her son, who was a doctor, had brought her there to Fort Arbuckle. She says, I wanted to come to the place where I was born. She said, I was born in Fort Arbuckle. And she showed me right where the house was where she was born. Her father was a lieutenant in the Army.
What was his name, the lieutenant's name?
You have to give me I don't know about that. She was the daughter of the man who became general. Was it R.H. Pratt? The big general during World War II was her father. She told me. I've got that information in there. It's one thing about me. I've got more history in my house here and out there than they've got in this library down here. A whole lot more of this county history in that old fort. But anyway, Mrs. Let me just look just here, just a second, see if I can get her name. You'd probably, Norman, what's his name? University professor anyway. And I finally, though, found these, which were there with the, from the library. And from these books, I got a lot of General Marcy's own story. Well, while you're doing all that, I'm going to see if I can find that name of that
Was General
lady.
Marcy at Fort Arbuckle?
General Marcy, he's the one that built the road to Fort Arbuckle. All that started when the government told General Marcy they were going to California to the gold rush, everybody.
Yeah.
From Little Rock, Arkansas, it was just steady stream. They went the northern route. Then the government ordered Marcy to try to find a better route, a southern route.
Mm-hmm.
So he did, starting at Fort Smith, Arkansas, and it came down and went past Fort Arbuckle. So that the people who went to the gold rush, many of them, there'd be parties would come by, stop at Fort Arbuckle, and go to that. Did you get to see the spring while you were doing it?
No, ma'am.
Well, the reason for establishing the fort, for making it at Fort Arbuckle in the first place, was because of this wonderful spring. The way he described it, he said, I have found a place with this, let's see, how did he describe it? A spring of, I believe he said, living water that poured constantly out of the rocks. And that's where he wanted to build the fort.
And when did he establish Fort Arbuckle?
Well, he just built the road out there.
Okay.
And the government then put the fort there. And I'm not going to give you positively on this, but because it varies. Some people say 1850, and that's when I think it was. Yeah, and I have heard that Fort Arbuckle was started in 1850. Excuse me. Jana, are you doing all right?
Yeah.
When you get ready to go home, you'll have to. Jana's helping me out today. I've got to get my glasses because these. You can see how all these things are. They're just
He said
perishing.
it was about 1850 is when it was established.
From 1850 to 1852, it was
Yeah.
established. I've done with my glasses. Find them down here. I just lay them down wherever I find them. When you get through, I can show you pictures that will tell you a whole lot too. Are you going to write a book? Is that what you're doing? The women fighters? Did you
Yeah,
read it?
right.
Well, I did. I was not a whack. I bet I recruited more people than anybody. She'd come by. There was a captain, and this whack girl would come by and get me once, twice a week to go on a recruiting tour with them because I knew the people and they didn't.
Yeah.
My husband said, "What are you doing? You know how the men didn't really like women in the army." And my husband said, "What do you want to go? They don't want women in the army." I said, "Okay, now the government needs them, whether they think they need them or not." So anyway,
This is during the war?
yes, I've got enough there for that. We go to Fort Sale and take bathrobes to the soldiers and food to the soldiers, and we drive all the way over there from Falls Valley. Sometimes a lot of friends up here, and they'd come in. Here I am. Marion P. Stevick, Mrs. Marion P. Stevick, Stevick, Marion P. Stevick. She was Mrs. Leroy Stevick, she puts down here. She was a daughter of R.H. Pratt. Let's see, what is this?
And he was a lieutenant at Fort Arbuckle?
He was in his youth. Her father was. She was born at Fort Arbuckle. And at that time, she was in her 80s when she came to my house and had been born there. And she was a daughter of this Now, let me see, I'm trying to figure this out. It's Brigadier General R.H. Pratt. He was a Brigadier General. That was during World War II.
Mm-hmm.
She's telling me, they're very proud of it, of those titles. Fidelity and Deposit Company of Maryland. Financial Center of San Francisco. I don't know what that's doing on the card, but that's on there.
Can you tell me what happened to the cemetery at Fort Arbuckle?
Yeah, I started to tell you that a while ago. When I went out there wasn't any cemetery there. They would tell you where it was. Now, the cemetery, that house I keep telling you about where I live over there, not where you were this morning, across the road over there, that house.
The barracks.
Yeah. And all right, if you notice, there was a long, big old building right out there, like a barn. That is all that is left of the old hospital. When I went out there, that was a big old tin building or something, looked like it was spliced up with tin and stuff. And my husband told me that that was the hospital. And that area, that pasture, that's his pasture now, I guess it's still a pasture. Now, some say that was a cemetery, but I have been told pretty authentically, I think, that the cemetery actually was across the road where you come in from 7, you come up this way, in that pasture over there, which my children now own. That was the old cemetery. But nevertheless, it didn't make any difference because those graves were all moved, transferred to, is it Fort Gibson or Fort Smith, the National Cemetery over there in Arkansas?
Fort Smith.
Fort Smith. It's where the National Cemetery in Arkansas is. It's where the bodies were moved. And that's what happened to the cemetery. But even after I moved down there, they found a body right where you turn off of 7 now to go north up Meridian. There used to be a store there, a little store. And in front of that store, they were digging a lay pipe or something for that highway there. And they dug up a body, but it was not a soldier. It was a cowboy. There were the boots and the cowboy boots and all that. It wasn't military. But I really enjoyed this old lady. This is Mrs. Pratt. I really enjoyed her. Her son had brought her in an airplane. But, I'm sorry that part of this stuff is gone, but you can see why. You just touch it.
It's just old and brittle. Where were you born?
Where was I born? I was born in Texas.
Where? What part of Texas?
Ector, Texas.
Ector?
Fannin County would be a better. Ector's a mighty small town.
And when's your birthday?
My birthday's in October.
What day?
October 5th.
5th of October. And what year were you born?
Oh, I'd rather not tell you. It's too doggone old. Oh, okay. We might just put out I'm a woman of advanced years. But I ain't old. Not yet. I ain't thinking I'm getting old yet.
Who was your father?
My father's name was Mr. Richard Lee Nelms, N-E-L-M-S. If there ever was a Texan born in the world, it was my dad.
Mm-hmm. Was he a native Texan?
Yeah.
Who was your mother?
My mother's name was Martha Viola Turner from Georgia. And her husband was Matthew Turner. Let's see, now wait a minute. He had another name, Matthew. What did she call him? She used to call him Mr. Turner all the time. I thought that was funny. Well, she called him Matt more than anything else. Matthew Turner from Indiana. He was a Northerner, she was a Georgian. They got along fine. Let's see what else.
Were either of your grandfathers in the Civil War?
Oh, Grandpa Turner,
Which side?
my mother's father. Civil War, also was a wounded veteran of Civil War.
Was he in the Confederacy then?
No, he was from Indiana.
Indiana.
He was
Okay.
his wife was from Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
But not him.
Did he ever talk about the Civil War?
Yes, he did. He told such a funny thing. He went down and the reason he was down in Georgia after the war was over, he really was born in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
But he was an engineer, and he went out to Indiana to do some surveying and joined the Army during the Civil War. And he signed up on the northern side. Well, his folks lived in Virginia, and they considered themselves Southerners, not Northerns. So this was so awful that he joined up with the Northern forces that they would have anything to do with him the rest of his life. He told me he never saw his mother again. But anyway, he went, the government, after, like I said, he got in with those Yankees, they sent him down in Georgia to go around and pick up all the mules that they'd left down there during the Civil War. The mules would get away or something, they lost them. So he was to go get all those mules that they had left down there in the South. And he said the very first came up, old man plowing out there in the field, and he saw this mule racing around out there. And he said he just went stalking over there. He's going to pick up that mule. He said before he got there, he was looking right down the end of a shotgun. Are you through, honey?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Don't interrupt.
Okay. And he said that he just took off. He never did get to that mule, and he never did get any of those mules. But he stayed down there. Grandpa wanted to come to Oklahoma.
What was your grandfather's name?
That one? Turner.
What was his first name?
She called him Matt. Wait a minute, now let's see, I really know his name. I was the only one that did know it. Martin? My gosh, I think it was Martin Luther Turner. N.M. Turner was what it was. N must have stood for Nathan or something, or Nat. And M, what would the M stand for? Martin. M.N. Turner. Martin. It'd have to be Martin.
Nathaniel Turner?
That's when she called him Nat, I reckon.
Yeah.
Or man, or whatever she called him. Excuse me just a minute,
Yeah.
I'll get her. You were asking me about my relatives. And
Yeah.
no, we got N.M. Turner out of the way.
Right.
Now, I think my most interesting relatives were my grandfather and grandmother down in Texas.
The Nelms?
Yeah.
Who were they? What were their names?
He was if not the very first settler in Fannin County, Texas, well, he was right along with him because, and he helped build the courthouse in Bonham, Texas, and he really helped get things started down in Fannin County.
So he wasn't part of Austin's colony, was he?
Pardon?
Was he part of Austin's colony?
Now, somewhere or another, they did come in with a colony. And somewhere I have that information. But right now, I couldn't tell you where it is to save my life. But they did come, Peters Colony. They came with the Peters Colony from Virginia, West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Peters Colony. It happened to that, just popped into my head. I don't have that. All I ever remembered that has been long since I even thought about it.
Well, how'd you meet Mr. Grant? How'd you meet you?
I've lived in Norman, and my dad had always thought there was no work a woman could do except to be a teacher. That was the only responsible, decent job for a woman to do. You don't want you work in any office, I want you to teach. So I had a teaching certificate was all I did not have a degree. I had 2 years at university, no degree. And I thought, I am going to get me a job teaching school. I don't need to go on to school and get a degree. And didn't tell my parents. And I got on, at that time, they had a train that went through. Every day, a train came south and a train came back north.
Through Norman.
Yeah, to Norman from here,
Yeah,
all
how-
south.
How come you went to Norman from Texas? How come you came to Oklahoma?
Well, you see, I was born in Texas. And when, by the time I was 5 years old, we were living in Oklahoma. My dad moved up here, that's why.
How come?
How come? Well, how come? My mother's father and mother moved up to what they call the territory up here. And my mother would not be happy until they got up there where her parents were, in Anadarko. Moved to Anadarko, which is an Indian town, you
Yep.
know. But I can remember what about my mother. It was kind of funny, but she was very young when she got married. And she never did get over being a young girl either, I don't think. But anyway, she just knew that the Indians were going to scalp us any night. It was going to all wake up dead. I never will forget that. But I wasn't scared.
What year did they move up here?
I have to go way back. Let me see. I'd say it was about 1907. I'm not sure that that's the exact date. But I do know that I had my 5th birthday in Oklahoma. And we moved to a farm. My dad he wanted to farm. He was a good farmer. He left his farm in Texas, sold it, come up here because she wanted to come up here. He wanted to, she did. And of course, I had a little sister and then a little brother born in Oklahoma. But we moved south of Anadarko on a farm, great big pretty farm out there. And we stayed there for a while, and then my dad decided that we should be in town where we could go to school, good school. I went to country school first.
What was the
Primary
name of the
teaching.
What was the name of the country school?
I don't have any idea now, gosh, that's been a long time ago. It was out in the country. They just called it the schoolhouse. If there was ever any other name, I don't remember, because I only went to that school to start school, was all. Because after we moved to Anadarko, we moved over close to my grandmother where she lived. And I went to the primary school over there, in that part of town. They just called it the primary. I don't know what the name of the school was. Now,
Talking about the country school by Anadarko.
oh, that little country school, I never really went there because we didn't stay there that long. I remember going to school with we had a young girl that lived with us and helped my mother. And my mother would let me go to school with her. Every now and then I'd get back my little lunch, go to school with this girl. I think Mom was probably just glad to get me out of the house so she'd have a little peace of mind.
Do you have any memories of Anadarko?
Oh, a lot of memories of Anadarko. I lived there till I was 14.
Oh, what did the town look like?
Well, in my mind, it was beautiful. They tore it up. They tore Lawton up. Urban renewal, We had wall-to-wall Indians, and my mother would, they had B Street, C Street, and D Street. My mother warned me. See, I was big enough then she could send me down to the grocery store to get, I can remember going in, she'd send me down there to get a box of crackers or cheese or something, and I'd go, and she'd say, now you don't go down C Street, you don't get on C Street, because all of the Indians up there on C Street, eating their bananas and sitting on the pavement, enjoying life, which was perfectly all right. There wasn't anything wrong with it. I liked to watch them. But anyway, she'd tell me not to do it. And of course, every time I went to the store, I'd go down C Street. It just fascinated me because there was all these Indians sitting all along there, and their moccasins and freebies and jewelry and everything, and all the windows were full of the things the Indians had, and it just fascinated me. And I didn't tell her that I went down C Street, but you just tell a little kid not to do something, it's pretty apt to do it. But anyway, nothing ill ever befell me from going down C Street. She didn't know it.
Did you get to know any of the Indians down there in
Yeah, a
Anadarko?
few of them. I went to school with, oh gosh, what was the kid's name? Oh, he became an artist. He was a good artist. What was his name? His father was the Indian agent there, white man. Oh, it'll take me a while, but eventually I will remember it. Not soon. A very handsome Indian young man. He was tall and big, but he was in the lower grades, not because he wasn't smart. He just hadn't been sent to school at the right place. He went to the Indian school first. But like I said, his father had a very good position in the agency there, and being a white man, he got this kid into the school. And we all liked him. He was very nice. Wonderful basketball player. Remember that. But anyway, I loved Anadarko. I really did. And there was an Indian mission out right south of Anadarko. It was a big Catholic mission. Indian kids went. Well, I was always wishing I was an Indian kid so I could go out to the mission because they had these nuns. And our little basketball team in the 8th grade would get to go out to the mission and play the Indian kids basketball. Indian kids always beat us, but we'd go because the nuns would serve us cookies and sandwiches. They'd just ply us with food. You know, we'd go out there. And the Catholic priest would come and get us in his, he had be a van now. Not a van, just wasn't a carriage, a bus-like thing. He'd come and get us. And it's all these kids that went to school. So we could go play basketball with Indian kids, which I love to do before I'm so old. I still like to play basketball. I just love to play.
What was the name of that mission?
We just called it the Catholic Mission. I don't know, but I can find out. Call some of my friends that live over there, but I go close to Anadarko every time I go a lot, and this would be no problem. I still have a lot of friends in Anadarko. Catholic Mission is all I remember, and I'm sure it had another name, and I can find out.
Well, when did you meet Mr. Grant?
Well, I started to tell you a while ago about not telling my parents that I was going to do what I did. Like I said, I knew that Papa wanted me to be a teacher. Oh, I know what I did. I saw a notice in the Norman paper, what did they call it? Anyway, whatever it was in the paper, advertising for a teacher in the schools of Falls Valley. And let's see, it was a grade teacher. They were not looking for a high school teacher. And I said, I am qualified to teach, so I'm going to teach. So I went out to the university and got a temporary certificate to teach school. And I got on the train one day, just about an hour coming down here. I don't think it took an hour to come on the train from Norman down here. Got on the train, came down here, got off of the train, walked partway up Main Street, and I saw somebody, and I asked them, where would I find the school board? And they said, I was right down close to the drugstore, and they said, right over your head, right up here, upstairs, there's a member of the school board. I think he's president. So I went up there, and his name was Bowling, Mr. Bowling. They told me what his name was. I went upstairs, and I was absolutely, I'm sure I was shaking all over. And I said, Mr. Bowling, I miss Bowling. Oh, I could have died right then, but I didn't. I got tickled, and he got tickled, and we both just laughed our heads off. I know he felt sorry for me, But I told him what I was doing. And he said, well, as far as I'm concerned, you can have that job. So then I went on around. I asked where the next man to go to and to apply to the board. It was going to be here that afternoon. Had to go back on that train at 6 a.m. So he said, go see Mr. Patterson right over here in this little men's store. That is the next handy one. And then there was one more member, and he lived out town. So I went over there to see Mr. Patterson, who had the men's store. And he said, yes, as far as he was concerned, that was fine, accepted. So I didn't have to do anything except tell him I had a certificate. So then I never did get to see the other one. They just said, you're hired here, come on. So I went home that night and told my parents. And I had a job in Bowlesville. I was going to teach school down here.
How old were you at that time?
22 or 23. I don't remember exactly which. But anyway, I was old enough to know what I was doing. And, anyway, I got a place to stay. Oh, I was going with young men around town, some of whom were in the university. And one I was going with said, oh, I'm going to teach school in Bowlesville. I've got a wonderful friend down there, Harriet Cox. She was a Pi Phi at OU, a very popular girl at OU. And he said, I want you will enjoy her. Well, I got her for a roommate. So we got a room over there on, it's what's Willow now, Willow Street. And across from us on Willow Street was a brick house on the corner where Haskell Paul lives now. That's where the man I married lived at that time. Only they lived at the farm too. They still had the farm. They'd go to that old big house where I went as a bride. They'd go out there a lot, but this was the house. The mother was widowed. And after Mr. Grant died, they had lived in that great big beautiful thing before he died. And then after he died, she didn't want to live there anymore. So two shysters, I just call them, two men, chopped her out of that great big old house and all that beautiful furniture, velvet draperies and everything in it. They got it. They didn't even let her go look inside and get her things out because she didn't know a thing in the world about business.
Where was that house, the old Grant house?
Well, you know where Haskell Paul lives now?
Yeah.
All right. It used to be just that house after my mother-in-law built that house Haskell lives in, after she was rickadooed out of this big house, and she was, that's all you could call it. They got it for nothing practically from her. She built then the one where Haskell lives now, which was smaller, and there weren't so many in her family. She had 2 daughters and 3 sons. So, like I started to tell you, I didn't know about him. I just got a room across the street, catty corner across the street from them. I didn't know who lived where when I came, and this lovely girl who was my roommate, fascinating person. So the next morning when I started school, I'd already been to church the Sunday before with the Methodist church. And when I got to church Sunday morning, I saw a young man sitting on the back seat all by himself, real good looking, about the right age for me. He saw me. So I think I only looked once or twice. Pretty sure he's back there. And then the next morning, I started school. My roommate and I, we walked in. Everybody didn't have cars then. We just walked to school. It's right up the street there. I was junior high, going to teach in junior high. She was in high school. She had a master's degree. I just barely had a certificate. But anyway, this high school girl came across the street when Harriet and I were walking to school and said, Miss Nelms, my brother would like to have a date with you. And I said, well, who's your brother? She said, well, his name's Tom Grant, but I said, well, where is he now? Well, he's at A&M. They called it A&M then. And she said, but now he'll be home this weekend and he wants a date with you. I said, well, I tell you what, you tell him to call me when he comes. Well, I just couldn't wait to see if he's going to call me. He did. So then, lo and behold, that was in September, of course, when school started. And the very 1st of October, here he came one night. Well, I have the diamond on now, but it was in a different setting then. But he came over with this diamond, not this setting, but that diamond, for me to get married. I said, well, I just wasn't thinking about getting married. I was just having a wonderful time. I was going on all the older boys. There was a lot of fun. I just wasn't ready to get married. Well, that made him so mad he didn't come back for 2 weeks. Well, I just cried and cried because I thought, oh, my, you'll never come back. So then, he'd be out the farm a lot. He came in one evening, and he did call. Well, I'm so glad he called me. But I still wasn't ready to marry him because I wasn't going to marry. And I said, I'd get fired if I marry because it's against the rules here. Teachers can't be married. Well, he decided to put it off till spring. And that's what we did. We just put it off. Because I did like him, and I was ready to marry him. And I never had wanted to marry anybody before because I didn't know anybody I wanted to marry. But anyway, I did marry him. And I just found out he's a person that always got his way. Could not do him. I tried. It didn't do much good. Turned out to do. He's a positive man. Believed that women should do what their husbands want them to do.
What year did you get married?
Oh gosh, when the roll was 1927. I believe it was 1927.
And is that when you moved out to the farm? 27?
Yeah, we moved out there right away. We had to move to this big old house, of course, which was completely new and foreign to me. I never lived in a house that big in my life.
Now, the bottom floor of that big house was the original part of...
Had been.
Okay. Was that one building with 2 fireplaces in the end of it, or...?
It was let me just give you an idea. It had a big porch. You saw that in the picture alone. Then you entered this huge hall, very wide, and the stairs came down one side to that side of the house. The stairs were over there. My husband and I took, our bedroom was across the hall over there, and then
On
we
the
had
east
a
side.
dining sitting room next, and a kitchen, which was cold as the icicles in winter. That was all fine. So, and I had to, see, the other brother was not married then, there was only me. And I had to start cooking on a stove that I never knew a thing about, which was a big iron stove. I mean, a huge, I called it the monster. And you put the wood in it. I never did burn wood, we had gas in Norman. I'd forget, let the fire go low or go out, and I'd have to go out and get me some more kindling and some more wood. So stuff that thing, get the biscuits baked. My sister-in-law stayed, I never would have learned to cook if it hadn't been for her. She knew how to cook. Her grandmother taught her how to cook. She taught me most of what I knew. Mama would let me fry eggs, and I could fry steak and stuff. That's all. I didn't know how to cook much. I was always a studious person. I was always reading the book, and I made good grades at school. I made good grades because I studied. So I didn't learn much about cooking until I got married. But this little sister-in-law of mine was just a whiz at cooking. She'd cook anything. She liked to. But I didn't learn to cook, and I had to learn to cook fast. I mean, I wouldn't have to just make a little dab of biscuits like this. You'd make one as big as that flour board that you put them on.
How come so many?
Well, there was my husband, and there was his brother, and this is funny to tell you, but half of the boys in Falls Valley were down there, and they'd come down and stay 2 weeks. Like I said, we were all young. My husband was young. And all these boys, they'd run around up here. They'd all been to school together. And then there'd be that bunch from, we called it A&M then. Every now and then the A&M boys would descend upon us. Great big house, lots of beds, you know. And when they had me, they had somebody to cook. So anyway, we had lots of company all the time. I never knew how many I was going to have to cook for. And then when my husband and I moved over to the house across from there, which was several years after that, I guess about 3 years after that, we moved over to our house. And by that time, I was a pretty good cook. So we always had, he'd come to the door maybe 15 minutes till 12 and say, Mama, do you think you could feed 2 more men? Whether I could or could not, I had to have it ready. Find something for 2 more men. I always managed. We had some in the house to eat, and there was without having some food there.
How many buildings at Fort Arbuckle were built there originally? Do you
Oh
know?
my gosh, no, I don't. There are books that will tell you that. I don't know exactly where right now you'd go to get them. But let me just take a look from here and see what the, because they did not have a
Okay.
good road.
There was the gold rush of 1849.
Yep.
And so Marcy built the road to the spring.
Well, here's something you might be interested in. Sweet notes of the bugle on the early morning air sounding reveille to rouse a sleeping garrison. This was at Fort Smith. Crash of the morning guns reverberating from the hills back of the fort rumbled over rivers into the Choctaw Cherokee country. The flag run to the top of the staff caught the first rays of a rising sun. Officers and soldiers went about their duties across the dividing strip of neutral ground that became known as Garrison Avenue. This was all in Fort Smith. The 900 people of the village, awakened by the cannon from bucolic sleep, resumed their daily tasks. Down on the riverfront, a boat that arrived from Fort Gibson the evening before was raising steam. Deckhands and roustabouts were wooding the boiler room preparatory to departure downstream. Traders opened their doors and made ready for customers. Indians rode into town and tied their ponies to trees and racks in front of stores. To all appearances, this was just another day at Fort Smith, but unknown to the people, it was pregnant with important news and harbingers of exciting changes in the hamlet. Late in the day, a familiar whistle down the river announced their old friend, the steamer Pennywet, leaving Van Buren 5 miles below. Soon round the bend in view of the village. Presently she swung into sight east up to the shore with ringing bells, running about of deckhands shouting and so, while she breathed from exhaust. She was tied up to the dock and went on and on. The news was soon common property throughout the village and fort. Can you guess what that was, the news?
Gold discovery in California.
Gold discovery, and I bet you've read this. The people knew vaguely that California.
Yeah.
They didn't have a good road. So I wanted to find that piece about Marcy, if I can, where he actually built it.
Okay, now Marcy is the one that trailblazed the road to California.
And the road
Did
in
he-
front of Fort Arbuckle.
Yeah.
Sure. He's the one in which the first road was built because they wanted a road to go to California, and they didn't have a good one. There was one, but wasn't good. So they got Marcy to build another road, and it was pretty good.
Now Fort Arbuckle was named for Matthew Arbuckle. Now, who was he?
He was, I believe, a general, a commander of something like that.
Speaking of
I think
that,
it was a general.
I understand there was a general that died and was buried at Fort Arbuckle. And so I assume he was moved to Fort Smith when they moved
All the bodies would have been moved. That's where he would have been buried. Yeah, he would have been buried there.
Had you ever heard who that general was or anything about him?
No. There was one named Updegraff. I read a lot about it and can't think of all the things I read about him. They called him General Up to Snuff. I don't know about
Was he at Fort Arbuckle?
Mhm. Let me see from right here. Here's something about that road. Rat Foreman, you probably read from him. In the spring of 1834, a military detachment under Major George Birch traveled this road from Fort Gibson, past the site of the future Tulsa, to establish Camp Arbuckle, a few miles west of there. Buford passed through a settlement of Tallahassee Indians on the Creek tribe, who were to give their name in a modified form to the city of Tulsa. On the same site, Captain Lorenzo Sitgraves, who in 1849 surveyed the north boundary of the Creek Nation, noted on his map the Tallahassee town removed here in 1834 from the mouth of the Verdigris. From here, Buford's road continued west past the site of Old Fort Arbuckle, Camp Arbuckle, and at a fort on the Osage Trail across the Arkansas River, and so on and so on and so on. But anyway, there's a while getting that road.
Do you have any old stories about Fort Arbuckle that you've heard?
Stories?
Yeah, anything that went on at the fort?
Yeah, I have a few. There was, let me see, the story of the two soldiers who gambled one night for the love of a young woman. But the one who won that night disappeared that night and was never seen again. How true that is, I don't know. But anyway, that was one of them. Then there was a story, and these aren't just sort of legends. The story of the young girl who fell in love. This is all would go along with the old fort. Fell in love with a young soldier at Fort Arbuckle, and her parents were going to take her away. She would never see him again, and she died. And to this day, in the hills of the Arbuckles, you can hear her piano playing these sad tunes through the mountains. Well, those are just pure D legends. I don't know if there's any truth to any of it or not, to any of those. But
Where did Tom Grant come from when he bought Fort Arbuckle?
my husband's grandfather came from North Carolina. That's where his people live, North Carolina. Came out here, and some of these Choctaw women were beautiful. They really were beautiful women. They were also well educated. They had nearly all been to some academy and well informed. They were not, even though they were Indian. They were well educated, and they were also ladies, good families. Because most of their families had money. They had big ranches. It would take me years to get out all the material I have on these things. Like the first house built in that area. You should go to the Youngblood house before you.
I've been trying to contact Laura Youngblood.
And she lives there alone. She's 90 or more. I think she's a little past 90 now. She was my husband's cousin. And she is part Indian and has been a beautiful woman. She's still an absolutely marvelous person. She lives there all alone. Not another soul there but her.
Now, did your husband's grandfather marry a Choctaw?
Mm-hmm.
Who did he marry?
Well, let's see. Trying to think of the first one. No, I've got pictures and everything. I think what was her name. He had 2 wives. The first one died, and then he married another one. You have to get into it. This is the thing that it's complicated because ranch, which belonged to the Youngbloods. That was a Dr. Howell. I say Youngbloods because that was this lady who lives there. Her name was, she was married to a Mr. Youngblood. They are divorced. She lives there. She's Laura Youngblood again. But anyway, let's see. Grandpa Grant. Oh, I would go crazy if I started telling you all those marriages. He married one of her, maybe one of her relatives. Forgotten which one he married. One of the Howell girls. One would be one of her aunts. One of her
What
aunts.
time did he come to Indian Territory? What year?
Which one?
Your husband's grandfather.
Oh, Grandpa Grant was there during the Civil War. That's what he was doing there with the fort. Let's see. What
was his name?
Thomas.
Tom, that was your husband's grandfather.
Mm-hmm. My husband's named Tom. His grandfather, Grant, was named Tom. They just called him Thomas Grant. He started the First National Bank, one of the founders of the First National Bank in Post Valley, First National Bank in Davis, another bank in Davis.
Did you know him?
Over. Never saw him. His father was dead when I came here.
Mm-hmm.
My husband's father died of pneumonia during the First World War when they had
that big flu epidemic.
The big flu epidemic of World War I. He died.
When did his grandfather die? Your husband's grandfather.
I never saw him. I don't know when he died. He had been dead a long time though when I came on the scene. He died. Let's see. Did he die? He was partly paralyzed before he died.
Has he buried you at Pauls Valley?
No. If you go down I-35 all the way to 7, right out here, you stay on it to get Highway 7. Just before you get to the place, ordinarily you're going to turn off that way and go to Fort Arbuckle. Yeah. But if you were going...
there's a cemetery right there.
That's what I'm leading up to that little cemetery right out there. That's where most of the old family are buried. His grandfather's buried there. Mm-hmm. His great-grandfather's buried there. The Howells are buried there. It is a real old historic cemetery. Then right out here, have you seen our Indian cemetery?
No, ma'am.
Right here in Pauls Valley. The old Indian cemetery. If you went out, you just kept going and went up that hill as you go.
I've driven by it.
Yeah, you've been by it. That is the old cemetery, mm-hmm. Indian. Now, Mr. Paul has relatives buried there.
Is the Smith Paul buried there?
I'm pretty sure he is. I don't know where unless Smith Paul, I don't. Let's see, which one was Haskell's father?
Is that Homer? Homer Paul?
No, Homer's his brother.
Okay, now Smith Homer? Paul's his great-grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that founded Pauls Valley.
Yeah, that was Smith Paul.
What year did they abandon Fort Arbuckle?
I would say 1867, and stay with it. But there's so many different dates.
Yeah, how come it was abandoned?
They were building Fort Sill. Oh,
they built
Fort Arbuckle was too far away from what they wanted was control of the wild Indian tribes around where Fort Sill is now. So they started Fort Sill to keep these wild Indians up. They had some problems. It's really interesting if you can get the right book and read on that about the Indians and their relation to the fort. But anyway...
Now, Fort Sill was built 1869.
Well, they abandoned Fort Arbuckle as far as I know, 67,
Yeah,
and
okay.
I think that's right. There'll be different people tell you different dates.
Yeah.
But I got mine out of a book, and I'm sure it's 1867.
When did Thomas Grant buy Fort Arbuckle?
I presume right after they abandoned it.
Was he here with the military at Fort Arbuckle?
Mhm.
That's
And
why he
there's
was
another
here.
thing. U.S. Grant was President of the United States. And I have been told by very close friends of Mr. Grant, not my husband, but his father, friends and old men, that Ulysses S. Grant and T.S.'s grandfather were first cousins. I can't verify it, I don't know it. They just told me that. Old men who knew have told me that. He said, well, they were, and they would say that is the reason that he got all that fort. And it probably was, because that thing was, now I say again, whether it's 9 square miles or 9 miles square, I'd rather believe it's 9 miles square. Wouldn't that be right? The fort was at one time.
It's probably 3 miles square, 9 square miles.
Right, 9
Yeah.
square miles. All right, which took in quite an area. But a lot of people think, I know this, I have read that he bought the building and the grounds, which would, I think, be purely local. I mean, I think they're thinking about the fort grounds. Building of the grounds for $50. It's hard to believe, but
Well, it was worth a lot more money back then.
yeah, $50 was a lot of money then. I have heard that. I don't know if it's actually true, but I've heard that. I don't think T.S. really knew about what his daddy paid, everything about it.
Do you have any old photographs of the fort?
Yeah. Okay. We may be days on this.
This is the old.
That's the house that was there at Fort Arbuckle when I
Okay.
was there as a bride.
Now the front porch is all part of the old building, and the 2 chimneys are original.
No, this was not there when the fort was there. This porch was not there.
Okay.
I've got a picture though that it may take me a little while to ferret it out. Now this is the old Dr. Howell, and this is old Dr. Howell when he was 90 years old.
Now who's Dr. Howell?
He was a powerful force in early day Oklahoma and in getting really that area. He had 17,000 acres there of a ranch. He was very effective. He worked in the legislature. He was what you would real call an outstanding citizen. It'll take me a while because I have so much stuff, but I would like to come all the time.
Yeah. What's this Dr. Howell's first name?
Thomas P. Howell. Thomas Pitchland. P-Y-T-C-H-L-Y-N. Because he is a descendant of Peter P.
Peter Pitchland.
And
H-O-W-E-L-L.
You know, I used to, when I lived at Fort Arbuckle, I did work for the Oklahoma Times. I wrote a lot. Sent them a lot of things. I wanted to, if I can pick it up here in order, I would like to let you read The Big House Passes, which is the article I wrote for the Oklahoma.
What happened to the big house?
My brother-in-law tore it down and built that brick house that you saw this morning.
Why did he tear it down?
Why?
Yeah.
I don't know. He tore down the old commissary that was out there. He tore that down. And he had no reverence whatever for the past. None. That old big house was so beautiful. The boards in the hall, when you walk in, had never been painted, stained, covered, or anything. And they were as slick and pretty as white ivory. They were so beautiful. They'd been walked on so long and used so long. It broke my heart.
What happened to all the
Did he use the lumber out of that house to build the new house?
Part of it. And he was, that brother was a smart man, an attractive person.
Do you have any photographs of the old commissary? Or?
Yeah, I've got photographs of everything. It'll take time for me to get it, but I have got it. I'll have to separate all this. About the time I get it separated, I'll go open it all up again. Now these things will be we don't want that. Do this. See if I can't find something.
Now, was Dr. Howell from Paul's Valley?
He came with his family, who were Indians. His mother was, I believe, a half, and his father was one of those pictures. He was a famous family.
Right.
And I desperately need somebody to help me assimilate this stuff and put it where each of its kind would be in the right place. Because I've got millions of pictures. I'll find a picture of that one Joe got in the wine cellar. You didn't see the wine cellar, did you?
No, ma'am. Is that wine cellar still there?
It's still there.
Now, where's it in relation to the house where Mrs. Grant lives now?
Well, you'd have to come across the road there. Come on over toward, go east, and go down past those trees. Come to an old well. The old well's still there, where the house was. And those two buildings we're talking about, you know, the smokehouse and the washroom. Oh, well, that old cellar, you would just have to walk from where the smokehouse is, or that washroom. Just walk a little ways south, right there. There's no house there, nothing, but walk a little bit. You would probably come across something that looks like a cellar. There'll be a door there. And if you open that cellar and go down in there, it's completely lined with rock. But that was the old wine cellar. Did one of those pictures you had this picture of the fort? Have you got that one over there?
No.
Now, I've seen several pictures of Fort Arbuckle, and sometimes they vary quite a lot.
Now, which one did they build the big house from?
Okay. This should be, if we're looking at it right, this would be the center of the parade now, where the flag would have to be the center, and that'd be this. Okay, then the big house.
The big house right there's coming down over there.
Yeah, over here. Now, there were 4 of these houses along here.
There's the well.
Where's the well?
There's right there the well.
Yeah. Okay, then if that's the well, one of these houses is my house. That's it. You know the house you were talking about. One of those will be it, because these are not there. There were 4 houses there. This one is theirs. I guess that's theirs. And that's the parade ground. This one out there. That, one of these right along here has to be done the original quarters. Well, let me see what else we have there. I love to do what we're doing. But here's the Howell house. It's a 3-story mansion, quite a nice house.
Is that here in Paul's Valley?
It's out there on the waterfront.
Is the house still standing?
Yeah. Good shape. Excellent, beautifully furnished. Now you talk about history. I think I have their story. Yeah, I do have it. I have it right here. These people were real pioneers. I mean, besides being pioneers, they were mountaineers. And all the funny old things. No, he could cuss. I never heard anybody rip them out like he could. And she could too. And, but they were most interesting characters. They have really lived interesting lives. You know, Paul Valley has a museum.
Yes, ma'am.
I started that museum.
You did.
When I came here, that was in ruins. I mean, glass was all broken and dirty. It took us a month to get it cleaned up. Well, okay, get something else to go. Something else. News. In these books that we might find. I'm looking for. Huh. That's what they are. What wrote that on? I believe I quit it. Oh, I never did quit calling. Still standing there just
Now-
as good as it was when the soldiers built that.
This was the old barracks?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Can you see the porch there starting?
Yeah.
But that old chimney is just as intact as it ever was.
Huh.
And it's
Now,
still
is
as
the wooden
original.
part of this house original? Is that the actual barracks? Or has that been built on?
Nothing's been built on it.
Okay, that's the,
Wait a minute, the back, way back.
now this back part's been added
Nowadays,
on.
they have, a wing goes out to the east,
Okay.
and that's been built on. That's the only part that's been built. After that.
What was your husband's full name?
Thomas Steuben.
Now, yeah, that's the remains of a big house.
Mm-hmm. To me, that was such a sad time to have to tear that down. Did you see this, all these people? I don't know how many times I had people out. Dr. Morris came to his meetings up there. What I did was invite all the people whose parents or some of their family had been born at Fort Arbuckle, and they all came out, 200 people that day. All those little people and places article, that's what, that was the title of my column that I wrote for several years in the papers. The ones that's got all the pictures in. I didn't think I'd ever forget it, but it's mentioned in all those books by Marcy.
Oh, okay, the doctor. That's an, is this chimney still standing in the doctor's office?
Not anymore.
No.
No. No, it's not. I asked Phil around so many times to wonder what the soldiers did when they were soldiering at Fort Arbuckle and just running a social life. And they said they had horse races and poker. The gambled and the horse races. That's what they did. Horse races. And then
Is there a town that sprouted up at all around Fort Arbuckle?
The nearest town is Hennepin, and you know where Hennepin is?
I've heard of it. Was it there when the fort was going, Hennepin?
No, you got a good one right there. I can tell you this, it probably was somewhere or another. I have, there used to be a woman and her husband had a store up there. Mr. Meeks' store, still there, but she's dead, and I guess he is too now. But Ardell Meeks established the store, and Mrs. Meeks was the first white child born in Hennepin. Well, at the time that I talked with Mrs. Meeks, she was probably in her 50s then, and she'd been born there. And that had been, I would say, at least 30 years ago. So Hennepin was there a long time. It was at first a camp of the, I believe, Chickasaw. I'm not sure. There was, I don't know whether you knew this or not, but there was a Wichita Indian village right on this side of the river as you go into Davis. On the west side of the river, there was a encampment of Chickasaw Indians. And there are more Chickasaws around there than anything. And my husband was Choctaw, but his cousins were Chickasaws.
Yeah.
And it was like that. There weren't too much difference in those two.
This is your husband, isn't it? T.S.?
Yes, the brothers. This little one with the frown on his face, that's the brother. So he was staring down things.
Yeah.
He's
And your brother's the one sitting down, your husband is the one sitting down.
Yeah, my husband is a very, very nice man. I kept all this, I'll probably be called on it, but at the Falls Valley Historical Society to give this about Dr. Howell, because he was prominent in the legislature, in the Methodist Church in Oklahoma, and just so many interesting things.
Here's a page out of a diary. A party of Mormons en route from Texas to Salt Lake City stopped
Stopped to spend the night.
Dr. Glisson, G-L-I-S.
That's the doctor. Dr. Glisson or Glisson, whatever it was.
Doctored them and got no thanks. And their elder preached.
He promised to preach for him.
Okay, it's 1854. So this is at,
I got that out of a book and wrote it down so I wouldn't lose it.
Yeah.
That's where you probably can't read it. I can't write. Well,
the doctor's name Glisson, G-O?
Well, it just depends whether you want to call him Glisson or Glisson.
Okay.
It's G-L-I or G-L-Y.
This says Glisan.
Well, if it's I, it's probably glycine,
Okay.
and if it's Y, it's probably glycine. Now, that's my opinion, I'm not sure if that's right. My brother came home from World War II. He told me, Katie, you've got more medals and things than I got. I've been through World War II. But I worked all the time in World War II, this American Red Cross thing I got. And I recruited wax. And I sewed for the soldiers.
Excuse me.
But I'm a patriotic person. I've never been able to find anybody that could tell who all those men are. One of them's my father-in-law. That's my father. The rest of them, I don't know. I didn't grow up in this town, so I'm not really familiar with all of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know about Fort Arbuckle. I've stayed up there a long time.
Now, who was Dr. Howell?
He was part Indian, a Chickasaw. And started to tell you about that recently. When they removed the Indians, I believe his mother was half Indian, his father was white, physician, a doctor, literally. And they moved them from Mississippi to Oklahoma. And they had to stop at where they stopped with the Indians was Old Cherokee Town, way down. You know where it is? Well, that was their first stop,
Where is Old Cherokee Town?
way down in the corner of Oklahoma, southeast corner. I don't think it's a town really now. I think
Is
it
Old
was just
Cherokee Town or Old Choctaw Town? Because that'd be in the Old Choctaw Nation.
Well, that could be, yeah. But anyway, whatever. I think the Hells are Chickasaws. I'm not sure they may be Choctaws. But anyway, they had to stop there. And then they went on to, they went to Eagletown. The next town they went to was Eagletown. And they stopped there. And his father was a doctor. That's what I was telling you. His father was a doctor. And he came up the river, which must have been Canadian, from Mississippi with their supplies. But she came on ahead with, they had 99 slaves. He wanted 100, he said 99. They came on ahead, and when her husband got here, they had already located where they are now, where the house is now. And her new baby had already been born. There they were. By the time he got here, he came up the river and they got stuck on a sandbar and couldn't get any farther. They had to be helped out or something. But anyway, it must have been real interesting and kind of scary in those days because Dr. Howell had one brother who went hunting out in the mountains one day from Arbuckle. He never did find him. Nobody ever found him. Nobody ever saw remains or nothing. You never know what became of him. But anyway, there were a lot of good stories out there. Some of them I got, some of them I didn't.
But what exactly now was he a medical doctor, Dr. Howell?
Medical. Graduated from Maryland. You'd be surprised how many doctors were in that neighborhood, right out there around Fort Arbuckle. There's an old doctor, I wish my mind would leave me.
Well, this Dr. Glisson?
Well, he was there with the army.
Yeah, okay.
But in the neighborhood out there, where those people began to settle, Dr. Hoover was one. I never saw these people. But my mother-in-law knew them. They were the only doctors they had when she went out there. She was always talking about old Dr. Hoover, old Dr. Dunn, and old Dr. somebody else. And Dr. Howell had quit practicing medicine for this time. But he was a graduate of Maryland Medical School. All of these doctors had been to Maryland. I think they must have gone up there and got quick degrees or something. And they did practice down there in that part of the world. My son-in-law brought them to me. He thought it, I believe it was yellow in. Did you see this picture? I think you did. That has the doctor's office, the commissary, my house, and this was what used to be the hospital. The hospital. What's left of it?
Now, is this the one that's still standing?
Yeah, what the original building is. We just use it for mostly storage of food, grains and things like that. It's got some bins. We use this for that. I'm sorry you didn't get to meet the delightful people that live in my house out there. They've gone to, I guess you told your friend in North Carolina.
I'd like to talk to them when I come back.
You would love them.
Yeah.
I have my brother-in-law's named Walter, and he's also a doctor. Well, Dennis Gray and Dr. Atkins. But anyway, these are my people. I've been teaching him ever since he's been out there because I said, Walter, I'm not going to be here to tell these people. For years I've been being a guide. I, take them on a tour and walking around the fort. She didn't tell you about the old spring, did she?
No.
Well, right behind that old commissary, behind Mrs. Grant's house, where you go up there, and go past that big old barn commissary up there. Go right down to the creek.
What's the first place they stopped?
It was somewhere up in north, close to Tulsa. And they made another stop that was around Tulsa. But they wanted, primarily, they wanted good water. So, let me see, which one of them was it? Discovered Marcy had written in his book, or his report, about a spring of beautiful living water that just poured out of the rocks, so many gallons a minute and all this stuff. So, and what a clear, beautiful spring it was. So he got them to establish the fort there where this water was.
Yeah.
Because he didn't want them all to get malaria and typhoid. So they found Fort Arbuckle a healthy place. And there they established it. And there used to be a tree up there, a great big old tree back down there towards the creek, that they called the hanging tree. I think they ever hung up there was beef, ham, pork or something. They hung up to dry. I imagine that's what that was all about. But from what I read in my books on that wine cellar was used. One story
You know where the old cash dump is?
Yeah. Where the old one is, you mean from the fort?
From the fort.
Well, I know where they used to look and find things all the time. That's the only things they found of interest as a historian. And that's been very well picked over, but see, that has been so long ago. There's probably stuff buried down underneath there that'll come up, because if you're gonna, if you were out there, say at my house, or you go down that road, like you came in, up the lane there, and then you turn north, you go just as far as you look on this side over here. On the west side, you see a hill, not a high hill, just a hill kind of runs up like this. And down below, it's just a flat little valley. Well, that's where they evidently dump things, because we have found remains of old water jugs, you know, and parts of spurs, and every now and then a button off a uniform. I don't know how many things I gave my grandson a box full of things that we had picked up. And I used to pick up, just routinely, I'd go out and pick up mini balls and even some old cannonballs, not too big. And I would find all kinds of things that my husband found. Not all of the revolver was there, some. And he sent it off to a gun magazine. And they sent him back the number was on the gun. They sent him back the name of the soldier that carried that gun in the Civil War. It's really interesting.
Do you still have the gun?
My daughter has it. She, the one that lives in Lawton, has they put it on a piece of velvet and hung it like a picture, because it's pre-Civil War gun. And then my husband found just a part of a gun one day when he was out plowing out in the field. And
What's your daughter's name in that?
Kitty Dutcher, Mrs. Joe Dutcher. Did you ever go to Lawton?
Yes, ma'am.
She lives on Northwest 41st Street. And she and her husband Joe are delightful people, if they are my children. Really are. She was over for the weekend, Mother's Day and all that. But anyway, she's interested in history too. Not as much as I am, because
Now, was she born at Fort Arbuckle, your daughter?
Yes. Both my children were born here, but I didn't want to go to the hospital, because I had a real good place there at home, you know, nice big bedroom, and a black woman took care of me, and a white woman who was a nurse. That's just what I need me to go to the hospital. I'd just be unhappy. I told my husband, I said, I don't want to go off and leave you and Carrie Lee here. Just wait, I'll be fine right here. Just leave me alone. So there I stayed. Both my children were with me, but I had Carrie Lee here in Falls Valley. My first child was born here, over there in the house where Haskell Fall lives now, because at that time we were living in that house. And so the next one, I said, no, I don't want to go to Falls Valley with the hospital. It's a ratty old thing, ready to burn up, look like. I'll just stay right here, right in. I had a real fine lady as a nurse. I wouldn't even go over. But anyway, we all loved that place so much. And I'm so glad my children and my grandchildren do. It would be terrible. That's a heritage, that kind of a thing.
It is.
There's years and years and years of living and heritage in that place out there all over it. And like I said, my children grew up to love it.
Would you consider going to Fort Arbuckle with us and show exactly where the buildings were laid
Sure,
out?
yeah.
I'd like to do that one of these days.
Okay. You got some friends you want to bring or something?
Just the girl I work with in Oklahoma City,
That'd be
and
fun.
like to bring out a video camera.
Okay.
And just go over the grounds, and you can point out what buildings were there, and then
Yeah.
have that for posterity also.
Yeah. Yes, I'll be happy to if you let me know when you're coming. And
Well, we'll try to pick out some day that'll be nice, and
Well-
then at your convenience whenever.
yeah. Well, pretty soon now, I think we'll have pretty weather when it gets through the spring storms that have settled down here. Pretty weather. Maybe a little hot, but we had I don't know how many gatherings I've had out there. People that have just asked to come, and then so I just have a big not open house, but just everybody come out in the yard. And those old oak trees in my yard were put out there when the fort was there. They put them out. They put the trees. There were trees they planted, from what I've read. They planted trees. It was in a square. What was in a square? Rectangle. And they had a row of trees all around the square. Well, these oaks, one just died this past year. None of us knew exactly how old it was. But when I went there as a young bride, and we had just moved over, no, we hadn't moved yet. We were still living in the big house when Dr. Thoburn from the university came out. And he wanted to go over, and I went over with him to my
This
house.
Joseph B. Thoburn.
And he said, I just wanted to come here. And he looked at that big old tree up there, and he said, you know, I camped under this very tree 40 years ago. And he must have been pretty old then himself, you know. So I knew then, if that tree was that old, then it was an old tree. And that thing just died this past year. It finally just went. Just fell over and died. Why, we nearly all cried. So my sister-in-law was living out there. Of course, my children had their swing on that old tree, you know, played under it all their lives. We all were sad to see it go. It's a beautiful old tree. But my sister-in-law liked it too. And she's great having flowers all over everything. So what they did, that old trunk, just can't tell you how big around it was. But if you set it right out here in the middle of this floor, you wouldn't have much room left. It's out there in the yard now. And what she did was, she's got flowers sitting all around on it. You know, they left it there. Pretty. And they're both gardeners, and they love flowers and everything. So anyway, they take very good care of it. They just live there in the summer. In the winter, they go to Tucson and spend the winter. Because I don't have anybody living in that house. You know, I have a man that lives right down below it that's supposed to watch it, see about it. And I furnish his house and water and everything, so we can stay out there and kind of look around at things. But they live there in the summertime all summer. They garden and they grow vegetables. They have flowers and everything, herbs. And I'm real lucky that.
Well, I think
When you get ready to come down and look around, let me know ahead of time.
yeah, I'd like to.
I love to go out there myself. I always love to go. I'm always happy to go to the farm. I miss it, living up here, but I thought, well, I can't live out there by myself. When I built this house up here, I had married again, very wonderful man. And I just thought, well, it would be nice for both of us. We just well move in. But he didn't live very long. He died pretty soon after that. So Errol was alone again. My first husband died. He was living out there. So then I kind of wanted to move away from it for a while.
You think you'll ever move back there?
To the farm.
Yeah.
Well, I can't because I'd be by myself. No, I don't think so. One thing about it, it's practically necessary that I go out there every so often. I just get to want to go to the farm, I just go to the farm. Sometimes I went out there time to just spend a week, I just stayed out there by myself. And, but it always does me good to go there and look at.
Well, maybe in a week or so we can come down and go out and you can show us where all the buildings were and
Yeah,
the wine cellar and all that.
that's right.